Hello, everybody. We're live.
Oh my God, that's all I have to say about that. Welcome. New languages. Oh, when you're doing something that says the day my whole life changed, what's interesting is that is not an overstatement. And I am very grateful.
We are, I think, broadcasting to everybody in the universe who's looking for this. So thank you for finding us, guys. The incredible Emily asked Dain and I to create this conversation. Dain, were you part of the creation, or did she really genesis this idea?
Yes.
Okay. We are here to invite you guys to a gentle possibility of dynamic change. The day my whole life changed, I believe, is the name of the video that's actually going to air after this talk with us. I think that's what the video is called. And it's Dain and I in another room talking. So it's a conversation. But it's also an invitation. Dain is going to be doing a bars class. They were talking about the bars. The day that Dain's whole life changed was the day he had his bars run for the first time, and that was by me 23 years ago.
Yeah, about 23 years ago. And the story of that is in there, and for me the invitation really is that change is possible. And I didn't know it. I
Right.
was seeking it. And once I experienced it, it was like, oh, this is what's actually possible. And so part of the reason we wanted to have this conversation in introducing you and previewing you, introducing you to this beautiful video that's showing, that we're going to be showing, is because of the awareness of what the experience of having things change in a way that is so great, is so phenomenal. Like, people are used to things changing into a state of less than a lot. They're used to going from happy to crappy, but to have a fundamental sense that everything is changeable into possibilities is a much different perspective. And I think that's what we want to bring, and which is also why the global bars class on October 22nd is like, guys, this is possible for all of us.
Yeah. So I was running bars. I think this was, I reckon I would have run your bars when I was 20 years old. I had dropped out of college because I was desperately looking for this energy of lightness and magic and something different that I was not getting in college. And you found me. I put a little ad in the local paper, and you guys will hear all about this in the video. And so for years, actually, you have thanked me. And for a long time, I didn't really get it. Because for me, it was this sort of I just ran Dain's bars. It was this sort of offhanded sort of place. I couldn't connect to the change. And then one day you actually said to me, I was like, what do you mean? I actually asked you, what do you mean? And you said, there was this light, this spark of possibility that you knew, which is where you were inviting to the bars, essentially. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, that's true. It's I've always believed in magic. And I don't mean believe, I've always prioritized magic. I've always preferred magic. Have I been shown a million times by this reality that magic doesn't work? Of course I have. Haven't we all been shown that a million times? But it never really worked. I always returned to this joy of expansive possibility and the interconnectedness of consciousness. And I knew that. I knew that then. I knew it, even though I was sitting there as a 20-year-old already sort of defeated by this reality, already sort of not, having a sense of confidence in that what I wanted to exist in the, like, what I wanted to exist was really easy or possible for me. But like, I knew that the bars had really changed my life and really saved my life. I had, my bars rung when I was much younger, and it really brought me out of heavy depression and drug addiction. And it really saved my life. And I was like, I love it. Who else wants to try this? And that's where that really came from. And it's like knowing that every time that you receive a set of bars, you access and increase your receiving. And every time you run a set of bars, you access and increase the receiving that's possible in the universe. And you and I are so gifted with this awareness, Dain.
Oh, so true. Like, there are no words to describe, because it's interesting, in going to have a conversation about this, what I always look at is, what was my life like before that bar session? And what did I hope was possible? What was I trying to achieve? And I hoped it was possible, but I didn't know it was possible. And I had given up hope, which is why I got to the place where I could have my bars run. Oh, a jackrabbit running through the field, who just stopped to say hi. Hello. And to know that I know now, and to there's a different thing between there's a difference in hoping for possibilities and knowing that they must exist, and knowing that they actually do, and that they do for you too.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, one of the things that bars created. And it's funny because we, as you and I would do, we could give away the whole video, but let's not do that. But let's let people know there is a global bars class you can attend from anywhere around the world on October 22nd. And then on, and if I'm getting the dates wrong, just ignore me. I think I'm getting it right. And then the next day is actually Access Consciousness Global Bars Day. Or no, Global Bars Day is before they're right there together, playing together. And what this is for us is, it's not about us. It's not about us, Shannon and I. This is about all of us. And this is about you. This is about you being included, in the sense that you have choice in your life, that you can actually enjoy it. And no matter where you're at, things are changeable. Because what I looked at with the bar session was, it acknowledged a space I always knew was possible. And when I said that thing to you of thank you, and you can acknowledge now that you always knew, but you had no idea that you knew, you had no idea, like walking around, you weren't living it, but it was in there, and the interesting part was to realize how much we knew that we didn't know that we knew. And then also and I see this with everybody, like, guys, whatever it is that you've been dreaming of, it's freaking possible and greater than you can imagine. And this always brings me to tears because of where I was. I had given up hope for the first time in my 30 years on the planet. Right before that bar session, I was going to end my life, and I set a date to do so. And then I had friggin' bars, and it changed it all, and I knew it. And so for any of you watching, the door's there. It's your choice to open it, and it always is your choice and always should be. And I hope you're not keeping it closed so you can show the world that it has defeated you, and keeping that door closed because you want people to know the results of how mean they've been to you, and you're destroying you to destroy them. Please don't. Please open the friggin' door to your life, whatever it looks like and whatever it takes. That's all I have to say.
That's beautiful. And I'm not sure there is much more we can say, because we really created like a whole 30-minute conversation with this story. So we hope that you guys enjoy. It's like, it's a funny thing for Dain and I to watch at this point, because we've really lived this change for decades, and it's the power of possibility is second nature to us. It's like, we don't go first to what's not possible. We dive into the enthusiasm of what is possible. And, while we're not naive that the world is full of the energies that are not possibility. So if you found this, if you're watching us, if you're connecting with us, like maybe you're just crazy enough to be free, you know? So is there anything else you'd like to add?
Nope. Thanks for being here and enjoy the video.
Enjoy the video, guys.
Bye.
In 5, 4, 3, 2. It was a sunny day in Southern California. We have many sunny days in Southern California. And this was back in the day when I had a landline.
Okay, if that tells you anything.
So this is the year 2000. I had a landline. I didn't have my first mobile phone yet, I think, because I bought myself my first cell phone when I was like 25 or something. So I had a landline, and the landline was plugged in. I lived in an apartment that was built in the 50s, so the phone had a special little table in its own little part of the house, and I hear the phone ring in the other room. Hello. Hi, my name is Dain Heer, and I was, you know, I'm new in town, and I'm a doctor of chiropractics, and I saw your advertisement in the Independent, and I'm just trying to connect with people. And I'm like, holy shit, someone's calling me for my ad in the Independent. So I put this tiny little ad in the free local paper in Santa Barbara back then. Is the Independent still
I think so, yeah.
in existence?
Yeah.
All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. Call Shannon. And I'm like, I
Okay,
hope someone
talking
calls, but I like don't want someone to call because I'm like, this is, you know.
Tiniest ad in the world, okay?
Like, yeah, you know, it was just, you know, it was the $10 ad I could afford at the time.
I wouldn't even be able to read that ad right now without glasses on, so that's how tiny the ad was.
You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, this guy's calling me, and I'm like, oh shit, someone's calling about access. He's like, so I'd really love to, and you were so cool. You were like, I'd really love to check out what you do. And I was like, okay. So I do this stuff called access, and we would start with the bars. And you're like, cool. And somehow we got together.
Yeah, well, I said, you said, yeah, we would start with this stuff called the bars. And I said, what would be the effect? You said, well, at the worst, you'll feel like you had a good massage. At the best, your whole life will change. And in the back of my head, I was like, well, my whole life better change or I'm killing myself, so what do I have to lose, you know? But there was also this thing where you were like this happy marshmallow on the other end of the line. Like there was no force. There was just like, hi, yeah, whatever you want. Okay, let's do it. It was so cool.
So Dain was calling me for something that had already saved my life and totally changed my life, which is called the access bars. Access bars, it's called the bars because there's these points on the head that you touch that are literally bars that run through the head that my father developed. He started when I was 12, and then I ignored him for the entirety of my teenage years because I thought he was super weird.
Good teenager, yeah.
But then I wanted to kill myself, and I was super suicidal, and I was in a lot of pain. And he sort of like tricked me into getting my bars run, you know? And it started working, and I started having more and more sanity and less like wanting to die. And eventually I dropped out of the school I was going to, and I just wanted more of that energy that access was giving me. Flash forward, you know, I was 20 years old, living in Southern California, being like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I guess I'll do access, you know, I'll try this. All of life comes to me with ease and joy. I'm like, Dad, what should I do? He's like, put an ad in the Independent. What should it say? All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory.
And I saw that ad and I called.
I'm like a big sports fisher. I'm like a sports fisher. I catch the big fish.
Catch the big ones.
I got the big fish.
This is the happy marshmallow I'm talking about, okay? So imagine this, right? And I'm at a place in my life where I've literally set a date to end my life 6 months in the future. And, you know, I was starting my second practice in Santa Barbara, and the reason I became a chiropractor is because I wanted to create miracles in people's lives. And I saw people that were doing it, I just couldn't seem to do the same thing. Like people would come to me and I'd be like, I don't know what to do. And I was 30 years old at the time, and for the first time in my life, I gave up hope. I was like, I'm done. And I had been doing metaphysical stuff and spiritual stuff and psychological stuff and reading every friggin' book I could. And I finally just gave up hope. Because no matter what had happened before, I always knew it could get greater. And I figured the next workshop I would go to would give it to me. And I had this sense that, you know, by the end of the workshop, the end of the weekend of these numerous workshops I attended, can't tell you the number of times where I was like, yay, I found the answer. And then literally like Wednesday of the following week, it felt like the universe caved back in on my head. And I was like, oh man, I felt like I was back in the same place before I started the workshop. And literally 2 weeks before I called you, because you didn't know this at the time, but I saw your ad the week before. And I saw all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And I was like, fuck you. You don't know what my life is like. And I got so angry, you know, and that wasn't even easy for me to acknowledge at the time that I threw the paper away. I'm leafing through the paper the following week, and the only thing my eyes focus on is this little ad. That was the only thing I could read in the friggin' paper. Everything else was just boring me to tears. And I'm like, okay, because I had learned long before that if you hate it or love it, there's something in it for you. And that's when I was like, okay, all of life comes to ease and joy and glory. Okay. And I had a moment, I had this brief just, you know, sometimes there will be some moment that really changes your world where you're willing to allow something different in. And the moment in my head was, what if? Like, what if, rather than this struggle that I've been going through that makes me not want to be here, like, what if it could actually be ease? I couldn't even get to joy and glory at that point, but I'm like, what if it could be ease? And then, so I call you, and I was like, oh, here we go. Because I'd tried so many things, you know? And in my mind, I was like, well, here we go again. And then you answered, and there was just such a, what I would call now, allowance and a space where it didn't matter what I had going on. And it wasn't that I said, hey, I have this and this and this going on, but energetically, it didn't matter what I was bringing to the table. You were there for it. And I was like, whoa, this is a different energy, because everybody else I had talked to was like, oh, I'm going to fix you this way and fix you this way and fix you this way. And you were like,
well, they probably weren't 20-year-olds and college dropout. So I was like, I have no idea what we're doing. I just know that I used to want to kill myself. I'm pumped on this now. Want to try it?
That. And I can't tell you what a gift that energy was. So we set up a time. You came to my office. And I remember that morning before you got there. And I remember being in my office alone, walking up, and I hated my office. I hated everything I was connected to.
To be fair, that was kind of a cool office.
It was a pretty cool office.
If any of you guys know Santa Barbara, he had this like small space in their Granada building, which is, I think, still the tallest building in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, it's got 7 floors.
I had never been up that high in Santa Barbara before. I was like, wow, this is like the big city up here.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's so a Santa Barbara point of view too. You know, it's like, it's so high, it's 7 stories. And, you know, and I looked around my office and I hated the tables. I hated the fact that it was so small. I hated the desk. It was just like, and I didn't know how to get out of that. And so here you come, and, you know, hi, how you doing? Hi, you know, and you're like, hey, what do you want to get out of this? I'm like, whatever you got, man. I just want to try it,
yeah.
You know? I'm like, pretty much everything, you know? And I probably said everything. You're like, okay, sure. Let's see where we go. And that beauty of you just being with me, like, it was also this truly beautiful thing of you were just being with me. You were just like, hi. Now, from your perspective, you know, it's like, I'm 20, I don't know what I'm doing, whatever. I don't have any other choice, but it's part of your being.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of
When
this.
I had been so exposed to that, and already had had years of having my bars run and years of changing through the use of that tool, that's what I brought with me.
Friggin' awesome. And so I lay down on my table and I can't tell this without crying. You cradle my head in your hands and put 3 fingers here and like this.
That's the start of the bars.
That's the start.
Pretend there's a head here.
Pretend there's a head, yeah. We did a bowling ball. And there was this energy that I don't know how to describe, didn't have words for. It just felt like somebody was gifting me peace.
Like there was this energetic flow of peace going through my body. And I didn't know it, but that was a huge part of what I was looking for, because I didn't have any in my relationship, in my practice, my relationships with my family. I mean, I had caring for them, but there was no peace. And this starts, and it, like, imagine something coming through and kind of melting all the stuff, I felt like I was filled with broken glass, and it felt like the glass started melting.
It's like a really good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah. And that was what I was living. I was done with the broken glass. And so you went to my feet, and then it took on a different flavor, but it was like a different flavor of peace. Well, the same one was still going. And then you did my hands, and it changed yet again. And I was just lying there in awe at that point. And this is just a few minutes in, and I was like, whoa. And then, you know, of course, I checked myself, you know, because you don't want to, like, just give in. You don't want to be too excited, because probably, like everything else, it'll go away, right? And so you start, and I remember kind of dazing out, kind of like a dreamy state for a little while. And then there was something, you moved your hands somewhere, and I started getting this joy. And that's the other thing I wanted. And that I thought, man, I didn't think I'd ever have it again. And to have it even for a moment for me was like, it was this, I don't have words. It was so beautiful, but it was also this like acknowledgement that it's actually possible. Like it can occur in my life right now too. And because I was trying to give joy to other people and being very unsuccessful, and so that started, and inside I started giggling like a little kid. And I just started, it started as a little like hee, hee. And after a while, it was like hee, 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 hee. And it was like my cells were giggling. And part of, you know, because you have, it was interesting because there was part of it where I could tell I was trying to analyze or like keep enough mental distance so that I could make sure that I was, you know, not, you know, totally giving in, you know, and whatever my, like the control that I had done, I was trying to do that. But what happened is it just kept melting and melting and melting. And there was a certain point at which I was just like, okay, I can surrender and receive. And you ran my bars for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I will never forget sitting up and looking out the window, because it was a beautiful blue day with clouds in the sky. And I was like, has it always been this beautiful here? And the beauty wasn't that, the beauty was all of it. And I was like, holy shit, if it feels this way to be alive, I'm in. And it took an hour and 15 minutes. And, you know, I'm not here to say that everybody has that experience or that level of transformation.
Yeah.
But for me to know that it was even possible. And so at that point, you know, I was a chiropractor and you were an access practitioner.
I was an art school dropout. And I was an access.
Way to sell it, lady. Way to sell it.
I was like the second access practitioner because my dad was doing it, and I was like, I'll just try this.
Right. And can you? I mean, I can't even imagine something your dad does. Of course, you would stay away from it, you know, until such time as you're like, no, actually, I like that direction. But it changed my world, and I tried to describe to people the space that it created. It's indescribable, but the sense of actual peace, like within my body, within my cells, not just a mental peace where I seemed to be less wrong or out of judgment for a moment. It was like peace.
Yeah. So should we talk about how the bars create that?
Yeah. And I want to talk about one other thing, which was one of the things I would do regularly was I would wake up just depressed as hell and with a sense of total hopelessness and despair, right? And I literally, my girlfriend at the time, she would leave for work and I would lay in bed and just wallowing in self-pity and a lot of times start crying, you know? And when you were after you finished my bars, you said, by the way, we have all these tools. And what they do is, in between bar sessions and whatever in your life, use these because it'll make things lighter. So I'll give you one to start with. Use this until I see you again. And you wrote down, who does this belong to?
I remember that.
Little yellow sticky note.
I remember writing it down on your desk. That
Yep.
was the tools, that was the resources we had available at the time.
Bars and who does this belong to? And so you wrote that down, and I put it in my pocket. And when I got home that night, just kind of on cloud 9, I was on cloud 10 at that point. I, unloaded my pockets and whatever. And so for the next 2 days, man, I was just like, wow, I was just in a space where everything seemed possible. And I created more in those 2 days than I had in the 2 years before that. And things were just, I could feel them going in the direction I always wanted them to. On the third day, I woke up and there was that fucking depression and the anxiety and that thing. And I was like, fuck, I was really bummed this time because I was like, dude, I've had this space that is unlike anything I've experienced. And I knew it was possible. And now it's gone again. Fuck. And I'm wallowing in self-pity, crying like sob crying, like scream crying at this point. Because I'm like, if this didn't work, okay, fuck it. And I look over at the clock to see how much longer I can wallow in self-pity before I need to go be a doctor and help people. And I read, because somehow the little yellow sticky note was propped up by the clock. I read, who does this belong to? I just read it. I didn't even say it. I didn't think. I just was like, oh, who does this belong to? It fucking went away. And I tell people this, and it's like, that can't be. I'm like, believe me, I wouldn't believe it myself had I not been the one to experience it. And literally, I was like, where did it go? And then I had this flood of awareness of how many awarenesses I had that I thought were mine. And I got to tell you, that day I started doing, who does this belong to? Like, for everything. Everything, because I love this space of just like, hi, everything's cool, everything's okay. Just the space of being. And so everything that would shift it, anything, like I'd go, I walked wrong. Oh, who does that belong to? I'd be driving and I'd be like, who does that belong to? Who does that belong to? And that one tool started changing my entire world. And that, plus the bars, and you and I would get together after that. We got together about once a week. I would do chiropractic on you because I couldn't afford to pay for the bars. And
I didn't care.
And you didn't care. And you would do bars on me. And we had this wonderful thing. And I cannot tell you how much I look forward to that experience every single week. It was like the highlight of my week. It was like if you really like having a clean car, and your car gets really dirty and shit, and you're like so excited to drive your new clean car. I was like excited to drive my new life because it changed every single time.
Can I tell you something I got out of one of those sessions? So he came, I think the first one was in your office, and then you would come to my apartment. I'm not sure what, but anyways, this time we were at my apartment, and it was an apartment in downtown Santa Barbara, which is a spacious place, but it was downtown. And I think I was running your bars. I was probably, I don't know, one of us was working on the other one, and there was this leaf blower like right outside, and I was getting so frustrated by this leaf blower. And there was something in your world where like the noise did not matter. It was not phasing your experience at all. And I actually learned that from you.
Wow.
Yeah, I learned how to not be phased by stuff.
That's awesome.
Like I literally still reference that to today, till today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because I have a vague recall of that. And what was going on for me was what is going on is so beautiful. How could I even?
You weren't even, you totally just didn't let the annoyance even like be a thing. And I was like, oh, you can do that? Okay.
Right? And I remember, I think it was our second session where you said, I said, so this who does this belong to thing is changing everything. What else you got? And he went, well, we also have this way of changing specific things, and we've been exploring that for a while. I'm like, what? You're like, well, it's POCFIT, which is the old form of this clearing statement that we have. And I'm like, okay, how would you run it? Like, what do you do? Like, let's do it, you know? And you started running this thing about what have you made so right, good, perfect, and correct about mom, mommy, mama, whatever, like these different versions of mom and dad. And you just did those two clearings. And it was, it was like my whole world, my whole head just went, and I was like, whatever this is, can we please do more of this? And it became this awareness because I asked you how you use it, and you said, well, you can use it on specific things. We'll have to go into that later, but you can use it to change specific things, like specific things that are going on in the moment that who does this belong to doesn't handle. You can use this to actually change it because it goes back and changes, goes back to the point of creation of the limitation.
Yeah, so that's the verbal processing that we have in Access that changes the energetics of how we create how our lives are showing up.
And changes our point of view because,
Yeah.
you know, one of the things we talk about is your point of view is what creates your reality.
Yeah.
Your point of view of something being difficult or point of view of how it has to be is what creates it showing up that
So
way.
these verbal clearings make it so that you actually can be aware of your point of view and then not just alter it, but it's like change it. Not just change it into something else, but not have a point of view. It's a pretty dynamic way of transforming reality.
Truly, extremely dynamic, I would say.
And I just love that you received it.
Oh,
Because I remember sitting there just being like,
Man.
ready to be rejected, right? Ready to be like, okay.
thank you. That's that energy, because the energy with the clearing statement, the energy that you presented that with, that's the energy that I was aware of, like you said, waiting to be rejected.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we do that so much in our lives. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And here I am
Wow.
with these tools that really, frankly, were saving your life. But
Literally.
And I would love to have every person's life that I touch since you have been such a dynamic success story.
You and me both.
And there can be a lot of people who, when they're greeted with the possibility of true change, they're like, they don't make that choice. So you were really making that choice in such a beautiful way that
Thank you.
made everything greater.
And that, we see that a lot where somebody will say they desire a change, but the only thing they really want to do is make it work out the way they've decided it should.
Yeah.
And that's not the way the universe works. The universe is like, here, I've got miracles for you, but you can't control a miracle, you know? It's like trying to control a kitten. It doesn't work very well. So we were also talking about how the bars work. You were going to say...
Yeah. Well, should we talk about how the bars actually facilitate that sense of peace? I mean, I would say that peace is like the bare minimum. That's like the least you get from the bars. And I love the way you describe it, where as soon as I put my hands on your head, you had this sense of peace. Because, I mean, I literally just had my bars run yesterday, and the minute he put his hands on my head, I felt like all the things I was worried about were gone. Like, literally gone.
Literally.
I was like, that is so much better.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like, we've done studies, you know, we have scientific data, you know, like one showed that it reduces anxiety, stress, and depression, an average of 87% with one session. But for us, you know, and people are like, you need to do more studies. And we're like, well, no, people...
But why don't we just talk about it like we want to talk about it?
Oh, I like that idea.
So basically, this is a very advanced method that I believe all the hospitals of the future will use, where you are able to discharge the electrical charge that's created by your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So there's a thing called energy.
If you haven't heard of it, it's amazing.
And anybody who knows anything about the brain knows that the brain is an electrical capacitor, and the way your neurons and stuff is a very broad, encompasses many things. Function is you neurally map you create a neural pathways based on points of view. Am I saying that eloquently enough? I mean, that's the basic. You create your neural pathways. There's lots of studies on this where children basically hardwire their brains by the age of...
Like 7, 8, in different ways.
Yeah.
They do it at different times.
So this process is the addressing of that hardwiring, essentially.
Yeah.
So you're sort of hacking your neurology, which ultimately occurs through your consciousness, and this process assists in the choice for change.
And it's, I love the way you described it, because it is that undoing of the hardwiring, the one set of choices or the one set of points of view,
And a lot of times I can't even really work. And the thing is, it's impossible to articulate or even really fully understand now how this process is working.
Yeah.
I do believe that in the future, this will be a far more common practice because it has a lot more to do with energetics than curing a disease or a problem. So the possibility that we're getting to with this is that we will have some awareness of the way in which reality interacts with our consciousness or lack of consciousness, self-awareness.
That, and we've done brainwave studies. We have the data for the brainwaves that get activated, and certain theories or postulations based on millions of other people who've been studied with brainwaves. But I agree, in the future, it's going to require the future of how our consciousness interacts with our reality, and like you said, or the lack thereof. But the thing I will say is, it creates a sense of space.
Yeah.
If you can get, we know how we are when we're contracted, when we're in judgment, when we feel
And
like,
a lot of times, how many of you guys watching this or listening to this aren't even aware sometimes of how contracted or how much pain you're in until it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? So it creates a sense of space.
Dynamically.
Which I think is super easy to disregard. Like, okay, space, then what?
Right.
However, it's what if all that pain and density that you experience so dynamically, so frequently, just became space?
At the worst, you feel like you had a good massage. At the best, your whole life can change. And exactly what you said, because one of the things quantum mechanics is starting to discover is it's the space in which something that exists that determines how it shows up. So when you have more space, you show up with more of that. When you contract that space to try to fix a point of view, you show up with more of that.
So this is obviously like something that I live, breathe, and understand dynamically. And what I love so much about the bars is that this isn't a process you have to work hard at. Like, literally, to receive a session, you just lay down. And a lot of times people fall asleep when they're having their bars run, and that during that deep relaxation, otherwise known as sleep, that occurs, the transformations can occur. So this is not about that you need to think really hard about what the problem is.
Yeah, that. And this thing about receiving is one of the other gifts of it. It's one of the few places in most people's lives where they allow themselves to lie there and receive. So,
thank you for receiving from me.
Thank you for gifting to me. What do you say to somebody who quite literally, with their hands in their presence, saves your life?
Well, if you've paid me back tenfold, many times over.
Thank you.
You have added to my life. You've made everything more fun, more possible. So it's sort of like I did the first initial heave, and then you did the rest of the work. I just went, I just got the engine started.
Yeah, well, I am so grateful you did. Thank you. And what I am excited about is all the other engines that are available to be started in the world and that are revving now in a different direction.